How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Yes, all right, thank you.
Good.
Did you have far to come?
Not very good at all. Close by.
Well, it was very, actually very good timing, your telemarketing team giving us a call, because we are looking at addressing some of the challenges we face as a business. So it's quite fortuitous that you're here. So really, what can you do for us?
Well, tell me a little bit about what you see, what do you aspire to when it comes to the business, the logistics? How do you see it fitting with the business? Is it a partnership? Is it a vendor relationship? If I were to come back to you 12 months from now, what would it look like to you?
Good question. The aspirational one, I think, is a good one. We could start with that. What do we aspire to? I think as a business we're aspiring to maintain our position at the top in a very competitive, increasingly competitive marketplace. Where would I see our relationship in a year's time? I think ideally the birth of a long-term partnership. That's how we operate at the moment within the organization. Everything is very people focused. We're a family company. Our relationship with the Far East element is one of a family, so we don't see them as a manufacturer or a supplier. They're an integral part of what we do. And I think that's how we've always developed the business, and our current processes now are very much run on that basis, that it's all about delivering the best possible customer service using a very people-centered approach.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what are you doing well right now? I mean, where do you see, from between where you are today and your aspiration, where's the gap? Where do you see the gap?
What do we do well? We are very good at what we do. We're a very creative company, and in some ways that's almost our unique selling point, is that we are very creative. We can respond and react very quickly. We have an incredibly tight and loyal team who are very hardworking. We are very flexible, so we can, for example, a lot of the work we can do on a very small bespoke level. If we're called upon, we can suddenly scale that up. We can recruit people in. We have a team of freelancers. We have outsourced designers and developers who we can bring in at short notice, who will augment the team. We have a very large team in China. So in terms of production, we can be extremely agile. So I think that's what we do well. The end product, the quality is the best it can be. And I think that's where we have always had the reputation, and that's something we really want to maintain. Where we're falling down is probably the wrong term. The market is changing dramatically. Mm-hmm. Our clients' market's changing. The world is getting a smaller place, to use a cliche. It just is. We are facing increased competition from Eastern Europe. The quality, we're not competing on the quality. Their quality is pretty poor, but they can compete with us in terms of timescales and turnaround and delivery. And that's where it's suddenly become apparent that we could potentially find ourselves with a problem.
From a logistics perspective, in terms of delivery turnaround time?
Primarily.
Okay.
But that logistics cycle includes various other bits and bobs that still need to be taken into account. So it's quite complex. It's not a matter of just saying you pick something up in A and you drop it off at B.
It's more of being able to rely on somebody who can work with you when you're under a very tight deadline, or you're very close to meeting that deadline, and it's going to have to be someone who's willing to spin very quickly and be able to meet your needs and understand that they're part of the whole customer experience in terms of the repeat business for you.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think it's almost having the same philosophy as we do. But being able to, and in fairness, I think it's also a matter of identifying, taking an objective look, if you like, at some of our processes, because we're very embedded in them. So as with any business, we sit there, we are very proud of what we've achieved and where we sit in the marketplace, but sometimes we're so immersed in it that we can't always step back and take an objective look. And I think what we enjoy, if you like, with a partnership relationship is that sometimes there is that look, have you thought about doing this differently? And bringing something new to the table. And I think that innovation is an important factor.
I noticed on your newsletter there's a quote from Albert Einstein, which leads right into your discussion about innovation in regards to imagination is more important than knowledge.
Yeah.
And what is key with us is that our retail customers that are of similar size see value in that whole concept of imagination and innovation. And they work specifically with us because of our ability to work with them and take an innovative approach that creates a great solution for them that allows them to see us as the true partner to the core team, which sounds like exactly what you're looking for. And that's what makes us successful with them.
Okay, I think that is what I'm looking for, and I think it's something that's almost unquantifiable. I make no bones about it. We've obviously asked other logistics companies to come and have a chat, and it's all very well those companies saying, yes, we can cut delivery time by 2 weeks, we can do this, we can do that. I mean, one would expect and assume that that's what a distribution company would do, and technological solutions are great, but if it means we suddenly lose a loop of control, then I have to question that. Because what we do have at the moment is that very personal service that goes right the way through, that gives us a unique edge. It's slightly clunkier than perhaps it could be, but it still gives us that unique edge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One thing that we do is we sit down specifically with our customers, especially when we're trying to develop a new relationship, and take the approach of taking a whole time set aside to talk just specifically about imagination and innovation, what it means to you, and how we can create what we call the imagination, the innovative logistic process.
Interesting.
And work that specifically with you and your team in terms of what does that truly mean to you, and looking at every touch point in your business process and how that integrates with the logistics process. Where does it come together? Where is it not important? Where are the key priorities? And every single step of that process that is eventually mapped is who is it touching and how does it affect the customer experience?
So how does that look? I mean, that sounds a crass question, but if you're talking, you have a system here that's fairly set in its ways. We've been dealing in the Far East for 25 years, and we've developed this process by osmosis, if you like, that's worked for us, it still works for us. We're now talking, and I agree with you, I think if you're looking at innovation and imagination, how do you bring that to the table, and how do you work with us as a company to get us to think in a different way? I'm not talking about me necessarily, but I am talking about the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. It's not so much of you thinking in a different way, it's us trying to think like you, and you potentially looking and thinking like us. You have experience with logistics providers. We have experience with retail providers at various levels in the retail chain, whether it be someone in your side of the business or someone like some of your current customers, such as Dorothy Parkins. And working in and sharing our ideas and what we have done in the past, and seeing where the gaps are and how we can create a more mesh type approach, mapping that out in a diagram and seeing where we can create a win-win solution for both of us. In terms of one of your customers, Dorothy Parkins, who was specifically looking at expanding into the US market, that was something where we actually sat down with them because we're a large global logistics provider. You know that much about us. And they were specifically working in the Far East in their supplies, and then trying to get into the US market, but they had an issue of scalability because they didn't know how successful they would be in the US market. So what we did was we specifically sat down with their team and worked out a plan that was very tailored in the approach, in understanding what they truly needed, in looking at them as a small, the US market looking at a very, very small niche type of environment and how to build that niche out, to looking at how that would eventually take pieces and parts of the larger Dorothy Parkins organization and how to integrate that in so that they could see the ability to achieve the revenue very quickly in the US, and also have the ability to start creating the true customer experience that is going to be so important in your business, particularly in the case of the razor thin margins.
Yeah.
And we did that successfully with them, and they have been with us for over 5 years now, specifically because we were there to help them make that entry into the market, which is similar in what you're trying to accomplish in terms of the scalability issues in creating a partner that is truly part of your development team and your family.
So how 5 years down the line, what is your relationship with Dorothy Perkins? How do you feel that's evolved?
It's evolved from being one of a vendor type relationship that we built out in terms of doing some general 1, 2, 3 your standard UPS logistics types business, to us working with them to expand their business into the new market, specifically in the US, and creating a viable partnership with the people working specifically in building the US market, and working with them in terms of taking that model and developing it into a larger size logistics transactional type of supply chain tool for them that they are currently using today globally.
Right. Do you work with any other mannequin and display manufacturers and suppliers?
Yes, we work with 2 of your competitors.
Right.
Which I will not mention, but
okay.
They are very similar to you, but you happen to be, I believe, a little bit more on the bespoke side of the business, aren't you?
I think we're bespoke is a big market for us, but we also have the facility and capacity to be very scalable. Do you know much about what we do or how we operate, as opposed to your competitors?
I would say that I know just the little that I know about in terms of reading from your website. Tell me a little bit more about it.
We consider ourselves, as I mentioned it before, creative. So we like to think of ourselves as being craftspeople, and I think we are. And I think that a lot of that comes through in our work, which is very varied. So how we operate, working on a client brief, we do create and develop our prototype here in the UK. We are lucky, and I say lucky because that's I suppose a little bit of the issue that we have, is that we have the main manufacturing plant in China, which means we can produce very cost-effective products. And they work very closely with us. It is very much part of the family. They have the same philosophy as we do. We work very closely as a team. They replicate an awful lot of what we do in China as well. We have quality checks all the way through the process, so that when we get it back here and we get it out to the client, we know that it's reached them intact, in full, and to their specification. But it's, in some ways, our own success is also becoming a little bit of our downfall, because it is quite a sort of funny old process where the creative side is very, very important, and getting clients sign off at each step of the way is important, because it makes sure that there is that safety net and we're giving the client what they want. But I would just like to see some of these bits tightened up, and I'm not quite sure how we do that.
I think the best thing for us to do would be to sit down, and if you're willing to take the time and the risk in terms of the time out of the day, to sit down and we can just sit and take a whiteboard approach to it. I can take some ideas, you can go and get some ideas together. You can put the meeting together in terms of who should be there, because you'll know who needs to be there. You can have someone within your team tell me the days that you're available so we can put the meeting together, and sit down for a 4-hour session and just map it out and start talking about where's the risks, because right now there's something holding you back from making a change, isn't there?
Yeah.
Risk?
Risk plays a part in it, of course. The control is a big issue for us. Geographically, I suppose geographically one always assumes, I like to keep tabs on it. At the moment we feel we have pretty tight rein on what goes on in that process. I'm very scared of trusting someone too much and losing that contact. Trust is a big part, and confidence is a big part.
So, in meeting again, there's a couple of things that's important. One is for you to get a better understanding of how we can work on trust, and a better understanding of how we can prove to you that you can be confident in us. And then being able to start looking at potentially processes, and for me to come back with you to give you some ideas of processes that we have put in place for the likes of Dorothy Parkins. But I'm going to step back and say probably someone who is of similar size as you.
Okay.
Are you willing to have that next meeting?
Yeah, I think so. I will be honest with you. We understand there is something not wholly right. Well, no, that's wrong, because that's a negative terminology, and I think that's important. We don't use negative terminology. I think we know that we can probably do something slightly better in that process, but the frustration is we're not quite sure what. We know that we are currently incurring 3% additional costs on our consignments because we're having to over-deliver, because products will be damaged en route. Often consignments are held up in customs, and product can be damaged there. By the very nature of the product, they're viewed with a degree of circumspection by the customs people because they're hollow. When they reach the UK, one of the key things is that we do. Obviously we tend to back them with other consignments, so it comes on a container, which is more cost effective for us to do that in terms of bulk and not having individual consignments. We then split them down and we take them to our own distribution centre where we check them, and then they get distributed somewhere else. We know that's probably not ideal, but I'm not quite sure if there is another answer, because we like to check them.
I can understand that. I can understand specifically because of the pieces that you create. It really takes someone with the expertise and skill of your team to do some of that inspection. And
sometimes they have to be finished here, so they might come over in an unfinished condition, and we have to then paint them, make them up, apply wigs, whatever it happens to be to the customer's requirements. So there are elements that are not standardized. A lot of it is, but there are lots of other bits that we have to tweak. They might come over in not complete and not built up, and then we have to build them.
These are a couple of areas that some of your competitors have expressed the same challenges. Everyone in the business has a challenge in that particular space. And what we have learned is that, again, taking the imagination and innovative approach, we have been able to create a scalable solution that meets the needs of specifically the retail marketplace and some of these challenges in terms of the ability to look at the merchandise again, deliver it not only from the international deliveries, but also in terms of delivering it back to your studio so you can make the final touches, and then delivering it back out to your customers. So these are all areas that we have studies and we have been able to put together. In terms of this meeting, I'm going to ask you to tell me some days and times when we can put this meeting together.
Before we do that, it's important, because I love that approach. I know some of my colleagues, particularly in production and on the dispatch side, will be slightly more skeptical. How do you get their buy-in in terms of looking at it from a 4-hour workshop that really starts to explore this imagination and innovation? How does that work? Because getting their buy-in is going to be important for me as well.
Yes, to get them to come to the meeting and not find a reason not to be there. It gives them an opportunity to express their concerns. I think it's very, very important to express the concerns so they have an understanding that they feel that they're part of it. This is their opportunity to express everything they feel uncomfortable about in an open forum that allows them to address whatever their concerns could be, which even means, I don't want to change because this is all comfortable for me. That's great. Let's talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that, because as we know, none of us really like to change.
No, and that's always a key thing. I mean, what I think we're looking at here is not a massive change. It's making tweaks. What I don't want to do is put on a display that's almost suggesting that people are redundant because we're improving a system, which is always the first thing that comes to mind. But it's actually a complementary service that is going to improve what we do, and because at the end of the day, we've got to grow. We've set ambitious targets for the next 2 years. In our current situation, that's going to be difficult to achieve unless we take some steps now.
Well, let's have everyone who needs to be involved, including the production people, at this meeting. It allows them to understand from upfront that they are being involved in the process. It's not a matter of them being made redundant. They're going to be part of the process. It's for them to address any of their concerns, to provide their insight, their whatever they believe is important to them, and so they can start feeling that they're part of this process. And the end result is that they have been, no matter what the end result is they are part of the journey and part of the team.
Okay. Now, in order to facilitate that, do you need anything from me?
What I need from you is a couple of days and times. I need you to tell me who's going to be at the meeting from your side. I will tell you who's going to be at the meeting from my side. I need you to, if you've got a room on your site, that's fine. If you don't, you can come to our offices and I'll get you the room.
Okay.
Get the room.
And in terms of information about the way we do things, the workflow, our product ranges, do you have enough to go on?
I will need product ranges and workflow, if you're willing to provide those to me.
Okay.
And whatever documentation we need to sign as far as an ND or anything like that you feel that we would be providing, get that to me as soon as possible and I'll get that signed off.
Okay. Anything else you need to ask me at this stage that I haven't told you? Or that you haven't learned for the website?
How was your trip to New York? Did you go to New York?
Oh, it's splendid.
Last event.
Yes. It's all, I mean, that's the other thing, is we're in and out. It's very busy for us at the moment. Finding time to get everybody together. I've been lumbered with the job of streamlining this system and improving efficiencies, for want of a better phrase, and I've got to find a way of doing it. So I admit I need a bit of help, because we, as an entity, we've looked at this and we cannot see where we can make sufficient change to improve what we're doing, and we need that help.
Okay. You're going to get back to me by next week with all of this?
Yep. Drop me a line to remind me, and I will do it.
Great. Good.
All right.
Anything else I need?
No, not at the moment. I say, well, let's get a date in the diary and we'll see what we can do from then.
Okay,
All right.
that sounds good.
Lovely.
Thanks,
Mary. Thank you very much. Okay, good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Thank you.